Big companies keep track of thousands of employees? Well, today we're going to build a simple but really powerful database completely from scratch using just a few lines of SQL. And trust me, you're going to see just how easy it is to get started.
So let's start with a basic problem that pretty much every business on the planet has to solve. How do you possibly track thousands of people, all their names, their roles, their salaries, in a way that's fast, super reliable, and actually easy to search? Well, the answer is a database. And a great way to think about it is like a super organized digital filing cabinet. The language we'll use to build and manage this whole thing, the instructions for every single action, is called SQL. Okay, let's dive right in. Before we can start filing away any information, we have to, create the actual space where our entire database is going to live. These two little commands are our very first step. And if you want to think of it in real-world terms, this is kind of like buying a plot of land for our new office building and then getting all of our tools ready to start construction. So create database, that builds the empty cabinet itself. And then that use command, that's us walking over to that specific cabinet, opening the drawer, and telling the system, hey, this is the one I'm going to be working in right now. All right, we have our cabinet. Now we've got to decide what kind of information each employee file is actually going to hold. It's so important to design the filing system before we start throwing a bunch of stuff into it. This block of code you're looking at right here, this is basically the architectural blueprint for a single drawer in our cabinet, and we're just labeling that drawer employee. Every single file we put in here from now on has to follow this exact structure. And it's super important to get this. This command doesn't add any people yet. Nope. All it does is build the empty structure. It's creating these perfectly labeled slots for an ID, a name, an age, and so on. This is what keeps our data organized from the get-go. Now here's why this is so critical. We have to tell the database exactly what kind of data it should expect in each slot. So int is just short for integer, a whole number. Perfect for things like an ID or an age or a salary. And varchar, that just stands for variable characters, which is a fancy way of saying text. That little 255 you see, that's just us setting the maximum number of characters allowed. Setting these rules up front is the absolute key to preventing errors and keeping our data clean. All right, our structure is built and it's ready to go, so let's get to the exciting part and see how we actually add our very first employee into the system we've just designed. This insert command is our data entry tool. It takes all of this one person's info and just slots it perfectly, and in the right order, into that structure we just created. And boom, there's the result. Our table, which was totally empty a second ago, now has its very first row of data. Our first digital employee file is complete. But, adding people one by one by one, that's going to get old fast. We can also add a bunch of employees all at once, just by separating them with a comma. It's way more efficient when you're trying to populate that digital filing cabinet for the first time. Okay, but let's talk about a real-world scenario. What happens when you don't have all the info for a new hire yet, right? Maybe you know their name and age, but their salary and what department they're in hasn't been finalized. And this is where SQL is so cool. It handles this perfectly. By first listing the specific columns we have data for, like ID, name, and gender, we can insert just that information, leaving the other fields like salary and department totally blank for now. Okay, after all that building, defining, and entering data, it is finally time to take a step back and just admire what we've built. Let's take a look at the complete database we've created. Now, this command right here, you are going to use this one all the time. It's pretty much the simplest instruction you can give. Hey, show me everything that's inside the employee table. That little star, the asterisk, it's basically a wildcard, a shortcut that just means all columns. So select star becomes the fastest, most direct way to get a complete bird's eye view of all the data you have. And there it is, our final employee roster. We've got all our employees listed out, and if you look down at IDs 9 and 10, you can see those blank spaces for salary and department. That's exactly what we wanted when we inserted just that partial data. Pretty cool, right? So just think about what we just did. With really only 3 core commands, create, insert, and select, we went from a totally blank slate to a fully functional, perfectly organized database. But just creating a big list is only the beginning. The real power of SQL comes from asking it questions. How do you find just one person? Or how do you see only the people in the IT department? That is the